There we go.
Welcome to A24 Quest, episode 22, technically. Well, not technically, because we actually started on the podcast. Episode 22 of the standalone series.
Yes.
And these are the two movies where I didn't really know anything about either of them, other than I knew Into the Forest had Ellen Page in it, and that's it.
That's it.
And I actually like these episodes. Sometimes they turn out to be really boring, but sometimes, like today, it's actually kind of interesting. So, what do you want to start with?
I'd like to start with Morris from America, because that's the one I started with.
Okay, that's the one I ended with, but I'm cool. Let's go for it.
Sure. So, Morris of America is a coming-of-age tale of a 13-year-old black kid growing up in Germany.
Yes. And just that premise alone made me interested to see it.
Yeah, it's not your typical coming-of-age story.
Right.
It's got a lot of German subtitles throughout the entire thing that you actually have to pay attention to. You can't just kind of zone out on this one. And you don't really want to. I like this one.
I actually like this movie a lot. This is one of those where it's one I hadn't heard of, and it doesn't have a lot of like star power behind it besides Craig Robinson, who's a national treasure.
I love that man.
But I this is one of those, it rises above the A24 mediocrity of a lot of these movies, and it's actually like legitimately good. Like I would really recommend this to people. It's and I don't even typically like coming of age stories, so take that with a grain of salt. That's not what I meant to say. I don't typically like coming of age stories, and this one really got to me because it's actually, despite the fact that it's a unique perspective, it's just a black father and son from New York trying to live in Germany, and the obvious problems that come with it. Like, it's actually pretty relatable. Despite that, there's a lot of situations in this movie where I was just sitting there, I'm like, I've done that before, and it was all the more uncomfortable for that reason. It really gets at you. And, yeah. It's good. It's a very effective coming-of-age story.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So the story of this really isn't... I don't know, I don't think the story is all that interesting, because it's this kid, he goes to a youth center, he finds this girl that he likes, they end up meeting up, she ends up pulling a prank on him, he gets mad, she's like, but it was just a prank. And he's like, oh, okay. And he just completely falls for her, and other things happen. And eventually she's like, you should come on tour with my kind of boyfriend?
Yeah.
And he's like, okay, and he does. And then she's like, oh yeah, now you're going to go on stage and rap, and he does. And he's good. Ish.
Yeah.
For 13, yeah.
That was a good scene.
That was a good scene.
The freestyle scene. I was like... This is a movie where the ending isn't very satisfying purposefully, because it's like, you'd expect him to get the girl in the end and that big like Hollywood ending, but it's not really like that. It's just sort of like...
Well, it just cuts, and it's so ambiguous that it doesn't have a...
Well, I mean, how the story wraps up with him and the girl, it doesn't really wrap up at all. It's just sort of like he learns that, well, that's absolutely not going to work out.
Well, not necessarily, because she said, "Oh, I'm moving to Berlin with this man," and then his dad's like, "Oh yeah, we're gonna try to get this job in Berlin and move there."
Sure.
So I mean, they might meet up again.
Who knows?
But I mean, like you said, it just cuts, and that's it.
Yeah, I actually liked the ending a fair amount. I had a point with this, but I forget what I was going to get to when talking about. Whatever. I can't do it.
Oh,
this movie is one of those, we were talking about this when we were talking about American Honey. It's like an experience movie. Oh, God, I need to turn that off. I forgot to turn the air conditioning off.
Oh, goodness. Yeah, it snowed in Minnesota again, so...
yeah, it's a little chilly out there.
Everybody's a little colder than they wish.
But
yeah, I agree. It is more of an experience type of movie. It's got good cinematography. It's got some decent storytelling. Yeah. I found that the German teacher that this kid has is super interesting with the way
Yeah.
she's integrated.
You know,
in the movie.
I loved that character, and I just wanted more of her because
Same.
she's just so lovely.
Mhm.
You know, she's just so delightful. It's like such a lovable character, and I just
actually-
want more of her in like every movie.
Yeah.
I don't care. Like the next if like Avengers movie, if she could. If like there's a scene where something traumatic happens to Captain America and he has to go like to counseling and it's her, the movie gets a 5 stars.
You know, I agree completely. She was
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
The only part in this movie that I was like kind of like there was a few parts in this movie that were kind of so impactful, like so memorable from my childhood that
Yeah.
made me cringe, I guess. It made
Yeah.
me physically upset because
It-
of how memorable it was. But then the one other part in this movie that made me feel bad in that way was when Craig Robinson was kind of mean to her.
Yeah, right. Well, and it's understandable because like he's really protective of his son, and
Super
she was
protective. And she did come and she's like, I looked through his stuff and he's got a weird rap in there that's kind of bad. And we're kind of going to look for signs. And then Craig was like, you teach him German. I'll worry about everything else.
Yeah.
Get out of my house.
Yeah.
It's like, oh.
like Craig Robinson as like a dad was very fun.
So good.
Yeah, I loved the scene that came after that because like what she was worried about was like the raps he was writing are really explicit and misogynistic,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a 13-year-old boy, and it's like, quite honestly, it's understandable that she'd bring it up with the parent.
Oh, definitely.
But and the scene that followed that, Craig's obviously mad about it, and you think, oh, it's because they're so explicit and misogynistic, and that scene that followed was great because it was actually a thing that I've struggled with a lot because I'm writing songs now, and what he tells the kid is like, I'm not mad because it's explicit. I'm mad because it's not true. You talk about having sex with all these women 2 at a time, and it's like, you're 13. You've never done that. And he's like, you got to write about what you know, and it's like that's a really powerful sentiment that a lot of people need to remember. You know.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things in there was like you got to write about the fact that you don't know shit till you do.
Yeah.
And that's the one that
And
got me.
that's reincorporated when you look at the lyrics of his freestyle at the end, because the
Mhm.
lyrics of his freestyle at the end are all about the experiences he's had in Germany, and it's like really cool.
Yeah.
And
That's what made that interesting.
yeah.
So yeah, no, I don't have a lot else to say about this movie. I
Fine.
thought it was really good. I think more people should have seen
Yeah,
it.
it's an underrated little gem. If
Yeah.
you like coming of age stories, if you like rap, this movie's all about hip hop and that kind of culture. Like if you like that, then definitely watch this movie. If you
Well, and German EDM.
yeah, it's
Electro swing.
One of the things I was going to say about this movie is I believe it's a German movie. Like I believe it's made by a German production studio. If you know otherwise, I might be wrong.
I don't, but I would believe
I
that.
was looking at the logos at the beginning, and there was like German names in there, so it's like I believe it's odd that this movie makes everybody in German look horrible except for the counselor woman.
Well, the counselor woman, and then that one guy that he wakes up next to peeing.
Yeah, that guy was kind of
That guy was super nice.
yeah, that was such a chill guy. He was just like, hey man,
He's like, oh yeah,
I'll make you
left.
some sausage.
And then he just gives him a breakfast in the shape of a smiley
Yeah,
face.
and
It's
he's
like,
just such a chill dude. It's
So
like,
nice.
Yeah.
It's like, okay.
but it's like this movie makes Germany seem like a hostile environment to live in if you're of color and from America. So it's surprising to me that it was made by a German production company. It kind of almost seems like this would be like an American perspective type thing, but I don't know, maybe that's just how it is.
I don't know. Like the most hostile it got was between the teenagers. And that was
and the leader of the
yeah, I'm getting there.
yeah.
But it was mainly the teenagers was the main kind of back and forth, and that's understandable because they're teenagers, and teenagers tend to be,
yeah.
not very nice to each other because they're teenagers. But then there was one scene where you had the one youth counselor go up to him and be like, "You see this? You see this marijuana? Did you smoke this?
Yeah.
Did you sell this to them? And it's
Pretty obvious racial profiling.
Yeah, that one part was like, okay.
And the mom of the girl who's very clearly has a problem with her talking to a black kid.
Yeah. That could be taken as that, or it could be taken as she's just like another really protective parent.
Maybe.
But I see definitely where you're coming from, because that's where I went first too. But the more I thought about it, it could just be she doesn't want her daughter dating because she knows her daughter's always out, because she's always at parties and doing things such as drugs. So I don't know. I could go either way on it, but I'm pretty sure it was going for the whole she's racist as well.
Yeah.
Which is unfortunate. But, you know, other than those two people, I don't think I saw anybody else in the film have any issues. Like, other than teenagers being teenagers.
All right.
Just mean people.
Absolutely.
I like the scene. I'm gonna talk about this real quick. I'm gonna go on a sidetrack.
Yeah.
I like the scene where they just take the flute and they put it in a tree.
That was fun. This movie actually has a surprisingly oppressive atmosphere of just like being unwelcome. But that was a nice little moment of playfulness.
That was fantastic. She's telling Morris how he's just boring, and then the kid that he's been having constant issues with is like, "We're gonna call the police on you," and then she's like, "Shut up," and then they look over at his flute, and then the next scene is him just yelling about, "They're gonna have to pay for my flute," and then it just pans and it just shows his flute is fully set up and just set in a tree.
Yeah. They just threw it up there.
They just put it in a tree.
Yeah.
Which I think is fantastic.
Yeah. And this movie's actually very funny. I should note. It's like, it's kind of a drama, but it is also a comedy. It's very, very humorous. I laughed out loud a lot. Almost as much as I did during Into the Forest.
Same. Let's talk about Into the Forest.
Okay. For some reason, when you were talking about the tree scene in Morris from America, I giggled, but it wasn't because I was thinking of Morris from America. I was thinking about the scene when Ellen Page fell out of the tree.
Oh my god, yeah.
I don't know why that was so funny to me.
So,
she just... It was like such a jarring thing.
Okay.
Like, whoa.
So, we're going into it. Okay.
Into the Forest. This movie is about Ellen Page and her sister and their dad. Her dad looks a little bit like Jeff Goldblum, and he's a cool dude.
He's like a bad Jeff Goldblum.
Bad?
Yeah, because Jeff Goldblum would be so much better.
Oh, you mean as in acting wise? The character is like a good guy.
No, he's a super good guy.
Yeah, he's like a likable dad.
Yeah.
These two movies have likable dads. The difference is the one in Into the Forest dies from a minor leg wound immediately.
Yeah, okay, so I'm going to rant about this movie for about 10 to 15 minutes, okay?
That's good.
Okay, and we can stop at any point and talk about little bits here and there, but let me just get into it, all right?
Okay.
So, Into this Forest, you got Ellen Page and another girl who are sisters growing up in the middle of nowhere with their dad. It is the near future,
and their mom's dead.
And their mom's
That's
dead.
another similarity between the two movies. Dead mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's said that the mom's dead, but it's implied. It's heavily implied.
Yeah. Yeah, so it's like the near future, and there's a power outage happening, and they don't explain whether it's across the country, the continent, or the world, but there's power outage. And so they live out in the middle of the boonies where it takes 2 gallons of gas just to get into town. And they're like, oh, the power went out. Okay, so they go and they grab flashlights and candles, and one flashlight was in the back of their Jeep. Well, they go about to the Jeep the next day because they want to go into town, and guess what? Somebody left the trunk open. Thanks, Ellen Page.
It was Ellen Page.
And so the car battery's dead, and they're like, well, what the hell? Okay, whatever. So they last 10 more days laying around the house doing this, that, and the other thing. And her sister just dances to a metronome all the time. Just dance, 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 because she's working for a recital.
I get those scenes, but they were weird to me.
Yeah.
Something about watching somebody just flailing around to a metronome is just weird. I don't know.
It was bizarre.
Yeah.
So then 10 days go by, and the dad's like, I got it. He takes apart his chainsaw. He ends up asking for her tennis shoes. her shoelaces, hooks it up to the chainsaw, hooks it up to the engine, starts the car with a chainsaw with shoelaces on it.
Would that work?
No.
I feel
maybe.
like the shoelace would break.
Probably.
Yeah.
Who cares?
Yeah.
So the car starts, they get in the car, they go into town. The town's kind of been ransacked, no gas in town. They end up going to like this weird store. It's like a, I don't know, like a general store.
It's the store from The Mist.
Yes.
Yeah.
They go in and they see a guy named Stan. Stan has a gun. He's like, "You paid up your membership card?
Yeah. And he's just
You got
generally creepy.
cash?
Yeah.
Then we're okay." And so then it's like, all right. And he's like, "I want to buy some candles. Any gas in town?" And Stan's like, "No gas." And then he gives him gas. And so he pays $50 for gas, throws in a box of candles for free. They end up saying, all right, and they head off. They stop at a gas station. At the gas station, a bunch of motorcyclists pull up and they go, "Oh yeah, fresh meat," and then they drive away, and that's never brought up again.
Sure.
Then they stop at the dance studio. The one sister goes into the dance studio and dances for a while because her dance studio is still open. The other sister goes to a party with her boyfriend and they kiss and she gets drunk. And she was supposed to meet up with the family at 11 o'clock but didn't. They pulled up, she got in the car with help from her sister, and there was no conflict over that. Whatever. Great. They end up going back home.
Yeah.
I hate this. They end up going back home. They spend a lot of time there, and the dad's like, "Yeah, we're not going back in town for a while." And then Ellen Page is like, "No, because I want to be with my boyfriend." Who cares? Anyway, so they stay in home.
Yeah, keep going.
Okay.
I was gonna just like elaborate on how like clearly the town's not a safe place to be in.
Yeah.
Like he's making a pretty safe call there. He's like, let's not. We almost got killed by a man with a shotgun on the road.
I forgot about that. Yeah, as they were heading
a man
home.
with a shotgun menaced me. Let's just. Clearly, things are going.
A man with a shotgun menaced me.
They got menaced with a man with a gun twice, and
God.
clearly it looks like a zombie movie in town. It's like things are ransacked, and they're like, but the dance recital, and it's like.
Yeah,
I think the world's kind of going to hell. I don't think you really need to worry about this whole dance recital.
I couldn't believe her dance studio was still open with her teacher.
I mean, yeah.
She's like, "Yeah, no, we can dance.
Sure, we can dance if we want to.
I guess."
Yeah.
Anyway, so they go back home, and the dad's like, "We're not going back into town for a while." Ellen Page is upset, and then the dad was like, "All right," puts his chainsaw back together from having shoelaces on it, with now the chain put back on it, and he goes out into the woods, starts chopping down a tree. So he's going, and then it does a close-up shot of the chainsaw's bolt that is jiggling and falling out, and then all of a sudden you're whoosh, and then him going, "Ah!" And Ellen Page and her sister just come sprinting out into the woods and find him lying on the ground with a leg wound.
Yeah.
And then he dies.
Okay, here's the thing about this.
Let's talk about that.
Here's the thing about this. It's implied, maybe the implication is that they didn't find him for a couple hours, but I don't think so. The way it's edited, it's implied that they found him roughly 40 seconds after it happened.
Yep.
So... okay, it's not even that bad of a wound. I mean, it's bad.
Okay, I think that's where there's an issue, because I think it is supposed to be super bad, because there is a big artery right there, and if it does get cut, you can die pretty quick.
Sure.
But it doesn't look that bad.
It doesn't look that bad.
It doesn't look that bad.
I think it might be a special effects failing. Maybe they could have made it look a lot more dire than it is.
Yeah.
It looks like kind of a scratch.
Because within about 40 seconds, he already has a tourniquet on his leg, and he already has somebody putting pressure on the wound.
And then he just dies.
And then he just dies.
Here's the thing. People don't die from leg wounds, like, right away. Like, if it bleeds for a while, yeah, you might pass out and die. But not within, like, a minute.
Yeah.
Maybe... I'm no medical professional. I'm no medical expert. But I don't think that's how it works.
Since there is a larger artery there, it's possible, but it would have to be such a deep gash.
See, here's the thing.
And it didn't look that bad.
See, here's the thing. Here's what really irks me about this scene, all right? It's debatable, right? Like, it's debatable completely. But the scene exists for him to die, and the chainsaw was right about neck level. Why didn't it just cut his throat or something? Then I could believe him dying right away.
Oh, for sure.
Why did it have to be the leg?
Or the chest.
Or the chest.
Anything else.
No, like anything vital. He died of a leg wound. And I get you can die of a leg wound, but like... if he's gonna die anyway, why not make the wound like believably fatal? What if they come and he's just got a gash in his head, like something that you'd be like, ooh, he's gonna die. I was just like, well, it was so frustrating because they put the tourniquet on and he's alive and it's like, oh, it's a leg wound, he'll be fine, like he'll pull through, and then he dies. So I'm like, wait, hold on, wait, what?
Yeah. Well, because that. Oh my god. So it was so anticlimactic. Yeah. So they were setting this up, and I'm like, oh, that's going to be an issue. He's going to get hurt, and there's going to be no power, and that's going to be kind of interesting, right?
Sure.
And so he gets hurt, and then he's like, tell your sister that you'll always be close and you'll love each other. Oh, and then he dies.
Yeah. I was like, okay.
What? Sure. And then the daughters just sleep with him for a night. It's like, okay.
Yeah.
Great. And the next morning they get up, they get shovels, they bury him.
Yeah.
That's the end of that. Okay. So, back onto my rant. Ready?
Yeah.
Alright. The problem with this movie that I find is when I try to get into it to actually start ranting about it is that I lack all the important moments because they're not important to me.
Right.
You know? Yeah, it's dumb. Anyway, so they end up staying back in the house for a couple more months, and then what ends up happening is the one sister is going kind of crazy, the dancing one. She's like, I need music to dance to. I need music. Mm-hmm. Let's just use the gas to turn on the generator because I need music. Yeah. And let me tell you, if somebody ever did that to me, I would smack them because that's the stupidest waste of gas that I had ever heard of until that point.
Yeah.
Dumb. So...
until the one later on in the movie.
Well, we'll get there.
Okay.
So there's that, and Ellen Page is like, no, we can't use the gas on that. And the other sister goes, fine! And she runs off and boards herself up in her room, in her dance studio, and stays there for a couple days. What's the next interesting thing that happens? Does their boyfriend come? Is that the next thing?
Yes, the Irish boyfriend comes.
Yeah. So the Irish... like Filipino dark skin though.
But he had his somewhat Irish accent.
He did.
I don't know. Well,
it's very weird. Anyway, so he comes to the house and they're like all scared because they don't know who it is. He comes to the house and like, oh, it's nice to see you. And then Ellen Page runs away with him.
I was actually really disappointed with that scene because Ellen Page gets the gun, which is just resting in the hallway. Not in the... whatever, I don't care about that. She gets the gun, she picks it up, and she's like aiming it. I wanted her to fire it because that would imply that they leave their gun around loaded with the safety off. She never turns the safety off. I wanted her to fire it because that could confirm to me that the filmmakers don't know how guns work. But she never fired it, and it frustrated me because you could imply, oh, the safety was off, so it wouldn't have. The safety was on, so it wouldn't have gone off even if she did try to fire it. But no, I'll never know. I'll never know how incompetent the filmmakers are.
It's true. It's very true.
Yeah. So
I mean, you can estimate that they're fairly incompetent, but you won't really know.
And it was so. They keep leaving the gun like leaned against a wall. They don't like put it on a table or like in a gun safe or whatever. And I just kept looking at it and be like, if it falls over and it like goes off, that'd be good. If it shoots Ellen Page's sister in the leg, oh my god, that'd be hilarious. Anyway, the boyfriend shows up.
So the boyfriend shows up. Ellen Page is like, oh my god, I'm so glad you're here. They go out into the fuck cabin and they have sex.
Yes.
And then they come back into the regular house. He plays harmonica. The sister storms off. And then he's like, hey, we're going to go to the east. I hear they got power in the east.
Yeah.
And then Ellen Page is like down to go. She's like, yes, I'm going to Boston. So she packs up all her stuff. The other sister's like, yeah, I'm not doing that. You're crazy. It's going to be winter before you get there. It's an 8-month walk.
Yeah. And honestly, it is pretty crazy.
It is pretty crazy.
I agree with the sister in this aspect.
Completely.
Yeah.
So they pack up some things, not nearly enough things, and then they leave.
Yeah.
And then they sleep.
For an 8-month journey? No.
Yeah, for an 8-month journey, they leave. They go to sleep one night, wake up the next, and Ellen Page is like, yeah, I can't do this. I got to go back.
Yeah.
And so she goes back.
And that's it. And
that's it.
Yeah.
That's dumb.
It was all completely pointless.
Freaking dumb.
And then the boyfriend's gone for the rest of the movie,
Yeah.
and it's like, why did that happen?
No, none.
To show how much she loves the sister, sure, but
Nothing in this movie mattered
yeah,
except for the dad dying, which was hilarious.
yeah,
And then a scene later on, which I'll get to.
sure.
So she goes back home, and then
Is it rape time?
not quite.
Okay.
We're almost there. Rough.
Yeah.
So the two sisters, they're starting to get along a little bit more. They got drunk one night and bonded. They shared popcorn and watched a movie because they decided to use the gas. No, I'm getting ahead of myself.
I think that happens later.
They did it twice.
Did they?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe. Oh,
Yes, they get drunk. They use the gas
They watch
on
home
the generator,
movies.
and they watch home movies.
And in one of the
they
movies,
bond.
their dad holds up a sign that says like emotional home movie
remake. Yes.
and I was laughing. That was amazing.
It's a good dad.
I was like,
It's a real good dad.
I wasn't laughing at the dad's actions. I was laughing at the idea that what if the screenwriters put that in just in case people didn't get it. I know that's not the case, but I love that.
That's a funny idea, though.
It's like, what if they're like, people won't get that this is an emotional home movie. Let's have him hold up a sign.
Oh God.
I feel like it was just the dad being quirky.
I think so.
But I don't know, man. I just, this movie just makes me feel like you never know.
Yeah, it's true. That's very true.
Because there's actually a scene later on with some pretty blatant explaining to the audience stuff going on when they're making soap with the boar fat.
Yeah.
And then they're like making soap. They're clearly making soap. They put the lye in. And then there's a voiceover. God, I can't wait to have soap again. And it's like, okay, you didn't need to say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, well.
Oh well. Okay, so now we get to the part. So they still have the car, but they get drunk one night, and then Ellen Page is like, "We should use the gas on our generator so we can watch a movie."
Is that what Ellen Page sounds like?
In my mind, in this movie,
She sounds
yes,
like
she does.
She sounds like a middle-aged prospector.
Yes.
We should use the gas. Yeah.
So anyway, they use the gas on the generator. They sit around. They make a thing of microwavable popcorn, listen to some music, and then proceed to watch home movies. That's what they do with their precious time with electricity running through their house again.
Yeah. That's okay because they're drunk.
It's okay because they're drunk.
Poor
Dumb.
decision
So dumb.
making.
I get it. Still dumb.
Yeah.
Anyway, Ellen Page then decides she's going to switch containers that the gas is in because she doesn't want her sister using the rest of it.
Yeah.
Great. Anyway, so then comes the fun scene where the dance sister, I shouldn't say that because it's actually really horrible, she gets raped by Stan. Stan shows up again.
Stan's back.
Yeah, and he's like, "How's it going?"
And he's just
Chopping that wood.
completely obviously creepy. Yeah.
Where's-
and he just shows up.
Where's your friend? Where's your dad?
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, he's been in the woods. He'll be back anytime. Oh, I'll just wait for him." Waits about 4 to 8 seconds and then proceeds to jump
right
on
to
her
the
and
rape.
rape her.
Yeah, it's like, oh my god. It's like, it couldn't have happened any faster. He just shows up, he's like, "Oh, I'll wait for your dad." Well, rape o'clock. He looks at his watch.
Jesus Christ.
Well, it's about that time.
So, this is where I'm going to talk about my main problems with this movie, all right?
Okay.
Right here. Is because every time something serious and important happens, they do an awful job setting it up
Yeah.
and portraying it. Like, the rape scene wasn't good. Like, at first, I didn't quite understand what was happening. I thought he was just going to kill her and rob her.
Yeah.
And then I realized, oh no, she's getting raped. And by that time, it didn't matter to me anymore.
They actually do this thing that a lot of more artistic movies do. Whenever something really messed up's happening, they cut the audio out, and they don't cut the audio out, but they like dim it. I don't know. No, I don't know how to say it, but it's just everything's really muffled and really distant, you know. And it's a really overused trope, and they use it far too often in this movie. I think by the time the rape happens, it's like the third time they've used it, and I was like, okay, it's getting a little old.
Yeah. But, you know, the chainsaw scene and the rape scene both were set up horribly, in my opinion, and then they proceeded to go about like showing those things in such a just boring way that I didn't care, or I thought it was a joke.
I mean, the actress's performance during that scene is pretty good.
Yeah, no, she was fine.
In fact, the acting is overall pretty good.
Yeah.
There are moments when they're not great, but I can tell it's just because they didn't have like strong direction or like a strong script to work off of.
Yeah.
The actresses are very good.
You know what I found even funnier was that all of the stuff that wasn't important at all was way more interesting and way better set up. Like
Sure, yeah.
the menacing guy with the shotgun,
Sure.
that setup was way more interesting.
Yeah.
If that would have come back at any point or time throughout the film, that could have been cool. Same thing with the boyfriend. That was actually set up all right. Like, I thought it was kind of, the premise was dumb. Like, he's like, we're going to go on this journey. But, like, it could have turned interesting, right? Mm-hmm. But it just don't.
Yeah.
It just don't.
Yeah. I chalk this movie up to wasted potential because there's an interesting story in here somewhere. It's just they didn't know how to tell it.
Yeah, it was bad. And
anyway, Ellen Page shoots a gun and falls out of a tree.
We're getting... That part's great. I know you're excited.
Okay.
I know you really want to get there.
Right.
But you got to hold your horse.
Sounds good.
All right? So... So we got the sister has been raped. She ends up going and taking a bath. She takes the last of her medicine, whatever. It doesn't matter. And then they're sitting around, and she's constantly scared now. She won't go outside. And then they find... This is my favorite part of the whole movie. Ready? The gun part's really good. This is my favorite part. Yeah. So Ellen Page is looking through the cupboard. She's like, oh boy, gonna try to find something. She looks in the way back, and she finds this little, like, wrapped up piece of paper that says pumpkin on it, which is her nickname from her dad.
Yeah.
And she goes, oh my God, sister, looky here. And she takes the...
Why do you do that voice for Ellen Page?
I don't know.
She doesn't sound anywhere close to that.
She does.
Oh my God.
She does to me.
Okay.
So she takes this little piece of paper that says pumpkin on it. She's so excited to have a note from her dad. She's like, let's go outside and read it. And so she gets her sister to come outside, actually, for like the first time in weeks, whatever.
Yeah.
And she like flips it over, opens it up, and there's pumpkin seeds.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was crying. That's how hard I was laughing at this. I'm like...
Yeah.
I was stunned. I was crying because of how baffling this was.
Yeah.
Like, I get it, but your dad, beyond the grave, just pranked you so hard.
Yeah. That's right.
So hard!
It was all it was missing was the wah, 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 wah. I was like, oh.
And the phenomenal just drop in her face. She goes, oh.
Yeah. Like, no.
Oh my God. I was just laughing throughout that
great.
whole part. It was great. Oh my God. Anyway, so now is kind of where the dictionary comes in. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about this dictionary. This dictionary is the best thing in the whole movie.
Yeah, it tells them what to do.
It tells them everything.
Yeah.
It tells them how to dissect a pig. It tells them how to go find good things. It tells them how to make good it teaches them everything.
Yeah.
It teaches them everything.
I think maybe it was more like an encyclopedia than a dictionary, but
yeah,
like,
but even then, encyclopedias aren't that in depth.
Yeah.
Okay, we're getting there. So the sister's like, I'm pregnant because I got raped. Great. Whatever. We get it. And the other sister's like, maybe abortion. And the other sister's like, no, I'm having this kid.
Yep.
It's like, okay, cool. That's going to be mildly interesting at this movie that I don't care about anymore.
Yeah.
I'm getting tired of this movie already, and I'm not even watching it.
So Ellen Page shoots a gun at a boar and falls out of a tree at this point.
Yeah, this is
that is basically the point we're up to. She hunts boar. She's up in a tree, and I don't know. Okay, I cannot explain why I laughed at this scene.
No, I can.
You can.
I can.
Well, it's just okay. She shoots, and it's a hard cut to Ellen Page just flinging out of a tree. It's like there's propulsion to it.
Yes!
Like she's just, there's an arc. And it's like, whoa.
So yeah, Ellen Page is just sitting up in a tree waiting for some boar. She's like, oh, there's the boar. She's kind of startled by them.
Yeah.
She's
she falls asleep and then she wakes up.
Oh, was that what happened?
Well, yeah, she was asleep and then she woke up and then there's boar. And
oh
it's
my
like,
God. So
shoot the boar.
she's just sitting in these branches that like shouldn't be sat in, period, because they're not like well made to be. They're thin branches.
Sure, yeah, but Ellen Page is a thin boy. He's a thin girl. Sorry. I'm not homophobic, I swear.
So she grabs her gun and she fires. And then the next shot is her falling forward, like fast forward.
Oh yeah.
Like she dove forward.
Like I said, there's a trajectory to it, yeah.
And she just lands on the ground. She goes, ooh, oof, and then gets up and shoots the pig again.
Well, she doesn't just shoot the pig. She gets to the pig and she's like, "You gotta die. My sister's pregnant. You gotta die."
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Oh my god.
That's interesting.
Oh yeah, and that's where we get right before that was when she looked in the dictionary or the encyclopedia, and it's like, oh yeah, your sister needs these vitamins to live as far as being pregnant.
Yeah. And
because dictionaries just tell you that.
Yeah. And they're animal stuff. She needs to eat pork. But they use every part of the pork. They make salt out of the fat.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
This entire... The idea that they used a dictionary encyclopedia to do everything they did drives me crazy, because I don't think there's a book out there that has that much information in it. Okay?
Maybe.
It drove me nuts. It drove me absolutely bonkers.
It was just a lazy storytelling tool. It's just like, if we need to know something, we got the magic book.
Yeah, we have the book. It tells us. The book tells us.
Yeah.
It was
and the
dumb.
book's even set up in the beginning when they lose power, and the dad is like, "There's a mystical thing called a book," and then they use it.
Freaking wizard.
Yeah, and well, that's how he talks. That's how he talked in the beginning.
Yeah, like, kinda.
So yeah, they use a book.
Yeah, so they use a book.
The book's the most important thing.
And then they eat the pig, and then the sister's fine. She gets more pregnant, and then the day comes when she's like gonna have her baby, and the house is kind of falling apart by this point, even though it's only been about 9 months.
Yeah, it's not even been a year. They've been living in this house their entire lives. Nothing's happened to make the house degrade, but literally the ceiling's caving in.
Yeah.
Like, nothing's happened to do that. The power's out, but the power doesn't sustain the house. No. Unless somehow in this future it does. Maybe the power is like this energy shield that protects the house from the elements.
So when the shields went down, the elements got to it, and it just couldn't handle it.
Caved in, yeah.
Oh my god.
They hear a bump in the night, and it's a ceiling beam falling down, and it's like, there's no reason for it to be falling down, it just does. It's just like, this house has stood for probably like decades, and it's coming down now.
Yeah.
At the most opportune, dramatic time.
Yeah.
Like, it is so falling apart, and they go back, and the house is just like wrecked.
Yeah.
And I don't get it.
So her sister's going into labor, and she's like, I can't be here. This place is falling apart.
Yeah, this whole part, I love this part because she makes sense up until a certain point. She's like, there's black mold in this house. It's falling apart. It's not safe for my baby. We need to get out of here. I'm like, I'm with you there. And then she's like, I'm going to burn the house down.
I'm not even...
I'm like, hold on.
I'm not even to that part yet.
Okay.
I'm at the part where then, as she's in labor, they go walking through the woods to the fuck cabin again so that she can have her baby.
Yeah.
Which that entire scene was fine.
Conception and birth in the same place.
Great.
Symbolism.
Fine.
Not conception, but, you know.
Yeah, you know.
Whatever.
Yeah. It was dumb. Anyway, so they went there, they had the baby, they come back, the house is literally in ruins.
Yeah, I mean...
and that's what the sister's like...
They can't have been gone that long.
Yeah, and then the sister's like, yeah, we're gonna burn it to the ground.
I'm gonna burn this house down. It's like, hold on.
Now, her whole reasoning...
Yeah.
Granted, she did have reasoning. Whether or not that was entirely stupid reasoning is besides the point, I guess. But her reasoning is that if it's burned down and somebody comes to look for us, they'll think we died in the fire.
Right. Well, first she says if somebody looks for us, then and we're not here, they could stay here instead of us. And I'm like, so?
Yeah.
Also,
who cares?
Also, you're leaving. You can't live there. This is your only place to live. What makes you think somebody else would want to live there?
No.
You think it's uninhabitable, but you're worried that other people will inhabit it?
Yeah.
So you gotta burn it down.
Gotta burn it down.
Also, who nobody knows they're out there other than the weird rapist guy, and it's not like he's gonna come looking for them.
Granted, she was very worried he was gonna come back, which is fair.
But why would he?
I mean, that's a good question, but I understand her fear of him coming back.
Sure, it's a fine fear and all, but like, do you think this man who presumably doesn't know how to track people, do you think he's gonna like come back to this house and see it's not burned down and be like, they must be out there somewhere, and he's gonna come find them?
No,
like I don't think so.
But I could see her being worried about that.
Sure, right.
Considering the trauma.
And I mean, I guess you could argue if they're leaving, they might as well burn it down, but they could also save the gas for something. Like the gas is like I know. I've seen a lot of apocalypse movies. Gas is a hot commodity.
Yeah, that's a good resource.
Yeah.
You know?
So
okay, yeah, this is where it gets really irritating. So you got... Well, I forgot to say they spent more gas just so that they could listen to more music.
Yeah.
Because Ellen Page was trying to cheer up her sister again after she was raped.
Yeah.
Which was still dumb. Anyway, so then they burned down the house with the gas. But the most irritating part about that to me was everything that they decided not to bring. Alright? I realize at the end they show these packs that are pretty full. But they did not bring as much as they could. I guarantee they had a wagon somewhere or a wheelbarrow, for God's sakes.
Sure.
And they could have brought more. But instead they burned it all down.
Well, they wanted to live off the land. Like real humans. Like ancient humans. That was the whole thing in the end. They're like, we're gonna live like the ancients. It's like, well, oh god, okay. This might be like an environmental message or something. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. I don't freaking know. They burned up a map. Like, why didn't they just bring the map? It's so small. Just put it in a pocket. Yeah. It's a map. Maps are good. What if you need to know where something is someday? Do you know these woods well enough? I don't think so.
Did you notice how terrible the CGI on the burning house was? There was a lot of shots that really distracted me with how obviously the house isn't on fire, but they put some CGI fire in there.
Yeah. It's bad. It's just bad. This whole section of the movie I thought was bad. So they burn down the house. They don't grab nearly enough. They end up going off into the woods with this baby, and they go back to the fuck cabin. And they're there. They just stay there.
Oh, that's
they're like, this is the new home. This almost not big enough for two grown women.
Do you think the implication is that they decided to stay there for a while?
It sounded like that was where they were going to be.
Walking distance from the house.
Yeah. Walking distance for a person in labor from the house.
Yeah.
They make it look really far away, but
they go there 4 times in the movie. It can't be that far.
Oh my god, yeah. That part was so dumb. And it does seem like they stay there because they set up a little camp. They have the kid. They're like, yeah, we need shelter.
Yeah, so they're going to stay inside that tree. We can't live in this house. We got to stay in the tree. To be fair, there's black mold in the house. I get it. But to be fair, it's a tree.
It's a tree. With a door that's made out of bark that doesn't even cover the whole door.
That's safe. Well, I mean, if they're worried about the rapist coming to find them, oh boy, how's he gonna get in that tree with the open roof and the door that isn't a door? It's just a piece of wood.
But they got shag carpet.
That's true.
Which, of course, wouldn't be moldy.
No.
Being in a tree and all.
There isn't mold in there isn't fungus in a tree.
Oh my god.
There isn't spores that might be bad for the baby.
Oh my god. So yeah, this movie was hilariously bad in all the weirdest ways.
Yeah. I didn't rate it like super low because like it's kind of okay at times. It's not like a hilarious... Well, I mean, it is kind of funny, but it's not like a horrendous train wreck.
No.
I don't think. But, yeah, it's about all I have to say about it.
They made beef jerky.
They did.
That's kind of neat.
Yeah.
I guess.
Well, I think we can wrap it up What do you... I think it's pretty obvious we're both going to go for Morris from America.
Yeah.
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 Definitely watch Morris from America.
Yeah. Don't watch Into the Forest.
Yeah.
It's not worth your time. Not worth the headache you'll get trying to figure out the logic that is happening there.
Yeah. Okay, so now's the time of the program. It's my turn, right?
Yeah.
Now's the time where I figure out what I'm going to show.
It's true.
Now, I don't think we can get our hands on a copy of 8th grade yet, otherwise I would pick that.
Understandable.
Into the Forest, Morris from America. Let's see, what's the next movie we're seeing? No. 20th Century Women.
Oh.
I don't know much about this. I actually remember when it came out, but I didn't look into it.
Okay.
I'm curious. I think I heard it was pretty good, so I'm excited for it. Trespass Against Us, we've seen that, right? Yeah, we did. That was boring.
Yep.
With Brendan Gleeson in it. Blackcoat's Daughter, we've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
Free Fire, we've seen that. We have not seen The Lovers, but I don't really want to pick it. Nothing against The Lovers. It's just I want to.
We could do Hereditary.
Oof. You know, I've been I've had a resurgence of Hereditary haunting my existence recently, so I kind of don't want to go through that again. Because I guess we'll talk about it when we eventually have to do Hereditary. But man, that movie,
It's rough.
yeah.
It's rough.
Because I watched a video on it recently and it brought back all the memories. So 20th Century Women and let's say The Vanishing of Sydney Hall.
Oh.
I don't know what that is. Okay.
Me neither.
After publishing a best-selling novel based on the death of one of his high school classmates, the controversial writer Sidney Hall finds himself catapulted to unexpected fame and renown. Sure. Let's go for it. It's got Elle Fanning in it.
She's okay.
She is one hell of an actress. I'm sorry. Okay, so Vanishing of Sydney Hall and 20th Century Women.
Great.
It's been kind of a long one. Thank you for sticking around if you did.
I just wanted to yell about how much nonsense Into the Forest was.
I feel you, man. Well, I hope you enjoyed. Check out those movies. Watch Morris from America.
Yeah.
And we'll see you around.
Adios.
Yeah.